Yun yung kabuuan po ng chapter 41 that we would like, 42, that we would like to explore tonight. And itong chapter na ito begins what we call the second part of the story of Joseph. And I think it is pretty obvious why we call this the second part of the story of Joseph. The first part of the story of Joseph involved his birth, his origins, yung kanyang naging mga dreams at yung pinagdaanan niya until he is brought to Egypt as a slave, and he lived in the house of Potiphar, and he was also placed into prison. Itong second part ng history ni Joseph is the reunification of Joseph with the family. So that is what makes it a very important aspect of the story of Joseph. And it is occasioned by a famine, and this famine necessitates the travel of the brothers of Joseph from Canaan until Egypt. Magkakaroon sila ng dalawang travels, itong 42, at pagkatapos nito, yung Genesis 43 and 45, kasi matagal yung famine, 7 years, kaya mauubos nila yung supply na iuuwi nila from Egypt. And so, afterwards, in chapter 43 to 45, they will also have to now take the second possible journey. Now, sa dulo ng binasa nating kwento, nagbibigay na ng pahiwatig o hint yung chapter 42 that they may have to enter Egypt a second time. Kasi nga, the famine is unpredictable, and so they were debating how to enter kasi may nangyari dito sa first journey. Okay, so there can have been, it is argued by many Bible experts that this entire travel story of the brothers to Egypt could have been coming from two oral traditions that were merged into one. And sabi nila, it could have been really a continuous story. Hindi talaga matagal ang pagitan ng dalawang travel. It could have been only one travel, of course, sabi nila. It could have had all of this drama. So, galing sa oral tradition itong mga ating narinig na kwento. But, siguro bago natin tignan yung laman ng chapter 42, let us first establish a certain timeline for Joseph. Para medyo alam natin kung ano yung mga namamagitan ng mga elements of time sa mga kwento. Kasi time is of the essence. So, ngayon, 2 weeks before election, talaga of the essence. Hindi na natutulog ang mga kandidato. Puro mga may eyebags na. Yung isa parang masyado na malaki yung damit niya para sa kanya. So, malay ko po sila. Yung isa, talagang nangitim na rin ng gusto. Yung isa, tumanda na rin. ka. So, time is of the essence. No? The story of Joseph begins in chapter 31. Yung talagang mahalagang mga mention kay Joseph. They begin in chapter 31 of Genesis. And this is Joseph's story with his father and the whole family in Canaan. And that was Joseph at age 6. So, kung pagsasama-samahin natin yung mga datos, chapter 31 of Genesis could have been a time when Joseph was age 6. And then, in chapter 37, when nangyari yung conflict sa pagitan niya at yung kanyang brothers, at naibenta siya sa Egypt, that was Joseph in his early adult stage, 17. He was 17 years old in Genesis 37. And then, he was brought to prison. Inakusahan siya ng kanyang employer, yung wife ni Potiphar. And so he is brought to prison, and he languishes in prison. No? Kasi nga nakalimutan siya. Nangako sa kanya yung cupbearer ng hari, pero nakalimutan siya nung yung cupbearer ay nakalabas na. So, Joseph was in prison. He interpreted the dream of the cupbearer and the baker. This is the story of Genesis 40. Ang tansya ng scholars is that he could have been 28 years old by this time. No? And in chapter 41, where Joseph interprets the Pharaoh's dream, and he is released from prison, and he is made a free man, and he is even made a vizier, a governor of Egypt, next to the Pharaoh. That could have been Joseph at the age of 30 years old. So, in chapter 41 brings us the story of Joseph at 30 years of age. Okay? And after which there were 7 years of plenty. So, he was at peace as governor, and he raised up his family, and he had his 2 sons, si Manasseh at si Ephraim, na magiging tagapagmana niya. So that would be until he is 37 years old. Kung 7 years yung famine, so isa chapter 41, that would be the story of Joseph from 30 to 37 years of age. So, in one chapter, you have the highlights of 7 years. Kaya, when you read the scriptures, medyo abbreviated yung mga timeline kasi hindi naman lahat ng mga day-to-day events ay isinulat. No? What we have here are the highlights. So if that is the case, that means in Genesis 42, where we now hear about the brothers coming to meet Joseph, But they don't know it was Joseph. That could have been Joseph at the age of 37. No? Kaya, kung titignan natin, Joseph and the brothers would have not met each other for 20 years. And ito dahilan kung bakit hindi nila namupaan si Joseph. No? So, many things have happened. Joseph was 17 when they last saw him. Now he is 37. So, malaking diferensya. Kaya medyo matagal hindi nila nakita itong kapatid nila. That explains why they never suspected na ang kanilang kausap na governor ng Egypt, second to Pharaoh, would have been their long-lost brother na kanilang pinagkakitaan, ibinenta. No? So, yun ang background netong ating pong kwentong ito. No? And it helps us more or less to imagine bakit ganito yung eksena nung sila ay nagkita-kitang magkakapatid. No? Okay. So of course, Joseph knew his brothers. No? They may not have changed that much, plus the dialect that they speak. No? They were speaking Hebrew at this time. Hebrew is the older language. No? In the time of Jesus, they will be speaking already another language called Aramaic, which is a more modern Middle East language. So, yung kanilang punto, yung kanilang pananamit, yung kanilang lengguwahe, gave them up as the brothers of Joseph. Okay, so una, nag-umpisa yung kwento na chapter 42 in a very important manner. Verse 1 to 5. So, in verse 1 to 5, probably you are hearing Jacob instructing the brothers what to do. Maaaring ang dating nito para sa atin ay isang simpleng instruction ng isang ama sa kanyang mga anak na remedyohan yung sitwasyon at maghanap ng pagkain. But actually, itong characterization ni Jacob sa verse 1 to 5 makes us see that even at this very moment, none of the brothers have yet overtaken Jacob as patriarch. Yan ang point doon. Ang nagdidesisyon pa rin sa poder ng pamilya ay si Jacob. So, ibig sabihin sa loob ng 20 anyos na nawala si Joseph, ang poder ng pamilya nananatili kay Jacob. Kaya siya nagmamando. No? And being a responsible member of the family, he is not resigned to see the family die of hunger. And so, he decides on a course of action. So, he remains to be patriarch. So, after him kasi, the next one to be patriarch is going to be Joseph for a while. But later on, the one who will really take over Jacob will be the fourth son, si Judah. So, i-emerge yun sa chapter 43. Wala pa dito masyado. No? Kasi dito, it's more still of Jacob. No? So, Jacob remembers Egypt. Sabi niya, it is known that there is food in Egypt. There were two very important centers of civilization during this time. One was northeast, Mesopotamia, Iran, Iraq, northeast. So that is where you have a big city. But the other one is Egypt. I think I have explained this to you. Kaya nga, for the Middle Eastern people, the crescent is a very important emblem kasi nga itong crescent na ito, although now it is made to symbolize Islam, it actually signifies what the people during those times called the Fertile Crescent. So, ito yung lupain ng Middle East na considered nila na mayaman. So, ito yung Mediterranean Sea. So, syempre, anything close to the sea is always progressive. No? So, that is the land of Canaan. Dito yung disyerto yan ng Jordan at saka Saudi Arabia. No? So, and then, of course, yung akyat na ganyan ng Canaan, ito yung Lebanon, Syria, and karugtong niyan, Iran, Iraq. Dito tatayo later on yung Babylon and Assyria. At sa baba naman, of course, is Egypt. So, the Fertile Crescent, tawag po nila dyan, sa history ng Middle East. No? Jacob, during the time of the famine, was deciding where the children will go to look for food, and he decides that probably the best thing is to go to Egypt. By that time, balita na ang Egypt ay may malalaking granary. Kasi 7 taon yun na tinayo ni Joseph, no? As the vizier of Egypt, 7 taon niyang pinagsikapan na itayo itong granary kung saan in-store ang buffer supply ng Egypt for the famine. Okay, so Jacob decides to let the children go to Egypt without him knowing itong ganitong desisyon was actually paving the way for the people of Israel, the family of Jacob, to migrate later on to Egypt. That will be the next phase of the story of the Bible, diba? How come mula sa promised land ng Canaan, the people of Israel will go to Egypt? So the reason is the famine. And it is not at all something amazing kasi kung babalikan natin, even Abraham went to Egypt once upon a time. Nung nagkaroon din ng famine sa Canaan, ang naging tendency ni Sarah at ng kanyang asawang si Abraham is to go down to Egypt, where nagkaroon pa nga ng komplikasyon kasi na-in love yung Pharaoh kay Sarah. You can remember the story. So, there is a connection in the distant past why Egypt. So, of course, we will know later on na itong Egyptian history ng Israel will take a total of 420 years. And that will be the subject of the next book of the Bible, Exodus. So Exodus will be the story of the 420 years that the people of Israel will stay in Egypt And how at the end of 420 years, sila naman ay makababalik sa promised land. No? Now, when the brothers reached Egypt, so kita niyo, hindi na kwento kung paano sila nakarating sa Egypt. No? Kung ikwento yun, matagal-tagal na journey sa disyerto yun. No? So, hindi na, pinas forward na yun. No? Kaya nga, pag nagbabasa tayo ng Bible, it should be very clear to us na a chapter may actually be a story of not one day, not 1 week, but it would actually be the story of 1 year, 1 month, several months. No? So in chapter 42, verse 6 to 9, right away after the short introduction in verse 1 to 5, we find the brothers in Egypt. They have crossed, of course, the Sinai Desert by this time. No? So, how long does it take for a caravan to cross the Sinai Desert? If they are going to take the direct route, the route that is by the sea of Mediterranean, it could have been a short, probably 1 week journey. But if they decide to make a detour, kasi the other detour, if they don't like to spend so much time in the desert, is for them to cross on this side, near what is now known as the city of Alexandria, dito sa side nito ng Gulf ng Saudi. No? Kung saan nandun din yung famous city ni Mubarak, Sharm el-Sheikh, where Mubarak was actually arrested. No? Ayan. So, they could have gone that side and decide to walk this way down the Gulf. That would be a longer trip. No? That would take another 3 weeks. So, 1 month trip yan all in all. Ang Mount Sinai ay nasa gitna nito. No? So, it's either left of the Sinai or right of the Sinai ang kanilang ikakat na route. No? So, we don't have any trace of that now kasi nga hindi sinabi kung which side they preferred, but they would have always traveled close to the water. This is Mediterranean, and this is the Gulf of Aqaba. No? So, this is the other way they can go, the Gulf area. Now, the advantage of this route, if ever they took that route, this is leading to what they call the King's Highway. The secret road that kings will travel from south to north and north to south. The kings don't travel by the sea because this route is the caravan route. Ito yung mga maraming mga kamelyo, hindi ka magmamabilis yan, parang C5 yan. Lahat ng 10-wheeler, lahat ng 40-footer, dyan dadaan. No? Kaya kahit nakari ka, hindi ka pwedeng magmabilis dito sa ruta nito. So, if they take this route, this is the King's Highway, but it cuts through the desert. No? Okay, so they come to Egypt, they bow before Joseph. Now, that word in verse 6 is very symbolic. Bakit? Kasi, remember, that was the dream of Joseph. You go back to the story of the dreams of Joseph in Genesis 37. At isa sa mga dream ni Joseph, sabi niya, nag-harvest silang magkakapatid. Tapos yung harvest ng magkakapatid ng mga barley, they bowed to Joseph's harvest. Yan, ha? Now, the prophecy of the dream is happening. They come to Egypt. They did not know that they were facing their brother Joseph. And the first thing that they do is exactly facing their brother Joseph. And the first thing that they do is exactly what the dream in Genesis 37, verse 5 to 11, has shown, that they bow before their younger brother. Now, Joseph creates a scene. Verse 9. He accuses the brothers of being spies. He accuses them of being spies. So, at ang kanyang word na ginamit, sabi niya, you have come to see the nakedness of the land. Why did he accuse them of being spies? Of course, he was testing the brothers, that's one. But one reason why he had all the right to accuse them as a spy. At 3 beses yan, they will deny. Verse 9, verse 12, verse 14. 3 beses niya i-stress na mga spy kayo. Oh. So, this particular action of Joseph was meant to create a drama, but above all, it was meant to, in a way, test the brothers. How they were. Yeah. So Joseph was not out here to take vengeance on the brothers. Kasi later on, he will tell that, sabi niya, I have no vengeance over you. Pero bakit ginanito niya sila? He was trying to test them. And he was trying to let them tell a story. Kasi kung hindi mo kikibuin, ano kwento? Siyempre, gusto niyang malaman kung kumusta na yung pamilya. Gusto niyang malaman kung meron bang developments na hindi niya alam. No? So, he was 3 times accusing them of being spies. One thing, they don't easily deny na sila ay mapagdiskitang spy because they have approached Egypt on the most vulnerable side of the kingdom, the desert. Itong bahaging ito ng disyerto, ito ang pinaka-open boundary ng Egypt. And this is where they came in. In fact, later on, the people of Israel will settle in this northern part of the Egyptian land, lower Egypt, call it, the lower part of Egypt, although it's actually the northern part. And they will settle here because it is the area closest to Canaan. Dito sila magtatayo ng kanilang settlement. Itong side na ito po yung pinaka-vulnerable part ng Egypt. There is not much fortification. For one thing, the greater fortifications of Egypt are found in the area of the Upper Nile. The Upper Nile is where the Nile River flows from Africa down. So that is Upper Nile dito. Dito po yung talagang malaking syudad ng Egypt, the old city of Memphis, which was the capital of the many dynasties of Pharaoh. So there were around 36, if I'm not mistaken, 36 dynasties of Egypt. One family after another, ruling the kingdom. But most of them, they will be settled in Upper Egypt, which is actually southern Egypt. Kasi doon nanggagaling ang upstream ng Nile. So, dito unang lumalabas yung tubig, yung lupa na ibinababa ng Nile River kapag nag-overflow from Africa. Kaya dito mataba ang lupa. Dito yung kanilang area na madadevelop nila for agriculture. Ito ay disyerto, yung pataas. Kasi dito, yung tubig ng Nile ay pawala na. Palabas na yan sa Gulf ng Aqaba. Kaya medyo hindi na masyadong desirable. Kaya later on, dito naman maglalagay ng settlement yung mga Israelites. Where the Egyptians do not often come. So that would be their best place. Okay, so they were accused as spies. And notice, true enough, the brothers made a revelation. And what is the revelation? The revelation about Benjamin. Na yung younger brother ni Joseph, si Benjamin, ay naiwan sa bahay. Okay. So, for Joseph, that becomes, of course, something that he would want to be able to do. See again his younger sibling, si Benjamin. And so, Joseph, being a very good planner, he has planned for Egypt in 7 years. Now, he plans what is going to happen to his own family and to his own life. He sends all the brothers to prison. So, sabi niya, kasi mga espiya kayo, dapat una, lagay kayo sa prison. So, this particular plan of Joseph was, first of all, to make the brothers think. Mag-isipin sila. Baka pag-isip naman sila. Siyempre, kung nasa preso ka, wala ka namang ginawa, hindi mag-isip. Kaya, yung mga napre-preso, nakakapagsulat ng libro. So, nag-isip yung mga brothers, to analyze what was happening to them, and try to see what is it that probably they are looking forward to. Now, on the third day, verse 18, Joseph brought all the brothers together and says, "Do this, you will live, for I fear God." So you see that everything that Joseph was doing was not because of vengeance, but it was more because he was also trying to size up paano kaya ang gagawin niya. 20 years sila hindi nagkita nito mga damuhong ito Hindi rin niya alam kung paano sila pakikitunguhan. So, but he feared God, and so he wanted also to be able to strategize what is going to happen next. Kasi, ibibigay mo lang yung grain, pauwiin mo. So, what's next? Wala. Diba? So, Joseph was trying to find a way that there will be an interaction with the brothers. So, sabi niya, verse 19, pauuwiin ko lahat kayo. Pero, may iiwan ng isa. Si Simeon, may iiwan ng isa. Para sa ganun, sigurado akong babalikan niya. Siya ang hostage. Uso na pala ang hostage. Uso na. So, siya muna ang iiwan dito, garantiyan na kayo'y babalikan niya, at meron kayong sinasabing younger brother nyo, gusto kong makita. Gusto kong makita yung younger brother nyo na yan. Now, it might be something that is very important for us to know. Ang tinira ay si Simeon, hindi si Ruben. Ruben is the eldest. Ruben is the eldest. Why not Ruben? Why Simeon? So nakapag-isip niya yung magkakapatid. Sabi nila, mukhang kinakarma tayo. So sabi nila, mukhang kinakarma tayo. At sabi nila, siguro nga, merong nangyari doon sa kapatid natin na ginawa natin na masama. No. Si Ruben, kung tinignan niyo po yung Genesis 37, verse 21, si Ruben ang actually nag-save kay Joseph. Kasi ang unang gustong gawin ng magkakapatid, patayin siya. Patayin. So, yan ang palaging mukhang bibig nila. Patayin. Sa mas pamilya. Sa mas pamilya. Pati anak, papatayin. Para pang papatay lang ng lahok. So, patayin. So, it was only Ruben who was able to tell the brothers, hindi ba, lagay natin siya sa pit, dry pit, yung pinag-iwanan ng tubig na balon kanya. Ngayon, ang original intention pala doon ni Ruben ay pag umalis ng mga kakapatid, isisave niya. Kaso, naunang dumating yung mga may pera. No? Maraming may pera ngayon, pupunta sa baryo. Kaya nag-uuwi. Dito walang pera. Sa baryo, meron. Isipin mo, 4 ang kandidato, magbibigyan ng 1.5 each. 1.5 times 4. Tapos umuwi kayo mag-asawa, times 2. May kasama pa yung anak mo, times 3. Magkano yun? Okay. Malaki-laking pera yun. Diba? So, talagang ganyan, So, anyway, yan. So, kinilala ni Joseph yung naging benevolent na aksyon ni Ruben. Kaya hindi si Ruben ang kanyang hinostate. Si Simeon ang hinostate niya. Ngayon, katapos niya, ang isang bagay na katakataka, sabi dito, verse 14, o verse 24, he turned around and wept. So, of course, he was trying to control himself. It was not time for revelation yet. So, pinipigil na niya yung sarili niya. Pero makikita niyo what he did, no? Nagbigay siya ng pagkain, ngunit verse 25, nagbigay siya ng instruction na ang mga pera ng magkakapatid ay ibabalik. Lalagay sa kanya-kanya supo. Ibig sabihin, hindi niya pinabayaran yung pagkain. So, ibinalik niya. So, makikita natin dito yung what really was going on in the heart and soul of Joseph at this time. He was moved to tears, he wept, and then he allowed that the brothers take home freely what they had to take home as food. Si pamilya niya ito. Pamilya niya. Of course, he did not like it to reveal kung sino siya. Ampun ba siya? Natin na. So, It's not the time for revelation. Yeah? Now, siyempre, nung pauwi na yung magkakapatid, nag-iisip sila, ano ba talaga nangyari sa atin? Bakit ganun yung gobernador na yun? Ano bang klase yung gobernador na yun? Ano ba talaga ang kartada niya? Pipintahan? May secret bank account pa yan. Lumalabas na. Magkano naman, hindi pa natin alam. Magkano ang kontribusyon ni Emilio Aguinaldo. So, binuksan ng isang kapatid. Nung nandun sila sa desierto, one of them opened the sack, and lo, money was in the mouth of the sack. Sabi niya, my money has been put back. Here it is in the mouth of the sack. At this their hearts failed them, and they turned trembling, saying to one another, what is this that God has done for us? Ibang-iba, no? Gawin mo yan ngayon. Oh? Sabi dito, their hearts failed. They trembled. At sabi niya, what is this that God has done to us? Pag ginawa mo yan ngayon, masaya. Sabi, kita mo, hindi tayo pinabayaan. Binigyan pa tayo. Makikita natin yung kakaibang value, no? The brothers, and this is a time in the scriptures, this is a time in the history of man where integrity was a way of life. So, kumuha ka, binayaran mo, dapat lang. Ngayon, kung ibinalik sa'yo yung binayad mo, at hindi mo alam kung bakit, itrineso ka naman, para sa kanila, there is something mysterious in what is happening. They smell danger. What is the danger? Alam nila, babalik pa sila sa Egypt kung sakasakali. Kung bumalik sila sa Egypt, namukaan sila. Ito yung magkakapatid na dumating na kumuha ng grain na hindi nagbayad, patay ka na. So, that was the point. They knew that there should be time for them to go back to Egypt. It might be impossible for them to go back anymore. Dahil sa nangyari. Kasi they could be accused. In-accuse na nga silang spies Tapos ngayon, kumuha sila ng pagkain na hindi nila nabayaran. That is another issue. Kaya, yun ang naglalaro sa isip nila. No? So, because of that, they went home with a big puzzle. Of course, Jacob admitted the brothers, and the brothers told him what had happened and how the brother knew, how the mysterious man in Egypt knew that they have a younger brother and that he wants to see the younger brother. So, naikwento nila yun. So, at least yun lang, puro kwento lang yun. Pero, sa verse 35, yan, soon, ubus na ang pagkain. They have now to think about going back to Egypt. And now, there is crisis in the family. Bakit? Number one, they cannot go back without bringing Benjamin. But they knew Jacob will not easily agree. Bakit? Abay, pangatlo na to sa kanya. Nawala niya si Joseph. Tapos, si Simeon nandun, naiiwan. Oh. Pangatlo na to. Kung sakasakali may mangyari dito sa youngest nito ni Jacob, this will be his third son lost in the family. So, kaya nga medyo nagpo-protesta siya. Sabi niya, ako, ano gagawin na? Isip ko, sabi niya, wala naman tayo pagkain. Mamili ka. Pagkain o dadalhin namin si Benjamin. Anyway, sabi ni Ruben, meron akong mga anak dyan. Kung sakaling itong anak mo hindi ko may babalik, hindi yung dalawang anak ko ang pagbayarin mo. So, meron pala ng araw, ano? No? So, talagang, ano? So, Jacob, in the meantime, can do nothing. So, sabi niya, okay, if harm should befall Benjamin on the journey, sabi niya, you would bring me down my gray hair with sorrow into Sheol. So, parang sinabi ni Jacob, ikamamatay ko. You will bring me down with my gray hair into Sheol. Sheol is the place of the dead. So, it's not hell. It's not purgatory. It's not even heaven. Sheol, for the Israelites at this time, was the place of all who died. Kaya ikaw ay namatay na mabuti, kaya ikaw ay namatay na hindi mabuti, yung Sheol, doon lahat nagsasama-sama yung mga namamatay na kamag-anak. Kaya nga sa Old Testament, there is also that particular expression, to be gathered up into the ancestors. Pag gano'n nabasa ko sa Bible, he is gathered up into his ancestors. Ibig sabihin, namatay siya. No? Kaya nandun na siya ngayon, nagre-reunion na kasama yung mga ancestors. Yung point nila. Yun ang idea nila ng death ng araw. No? Sheol, the place, the valley of the dead. Yeah. Okay, so yun yung narrative part ng ating kwento ngayong gabi. So, we are now opening up what is going to be the twist in the life of Joseph. Paano mangyayari na after 20 years magkikita muli ang mag-ama, si Joseph at si Jacob. At of course, itong mga kapatid na ito ni Joseph. Okay, so, any question on the story? So, kung wala nang question sa story, then let's move into ano ang pwede natin maging take home na mga reflections dito. Kasi sabi natin, when you read the story in the Bible, it's always the Word of God. God is communicating something. May gusto sabihin ang Diyos tungkol sa spiritual life, tungkol sa human wisdom, tungkol sa reality ng buhay sa mundo. So those are the things that normally are communicated in the Word of God. Spiritual truth, truth about life on this earth, and truth about living in wisdom. So during those days, they believed that if you live in wisdom, then you are living close to the plan of God. Okay. So ano mga reflections ang makukuha natin dito? Hindi binanggit sa ating pong kwento ngayong gabi ang salitang conscience. Pero palagay ko, yun ang isa sa mga mahalagang reflection natin ngayong gabi. Yung tinatawag natin na reality ng conscience. At dito, yung experience ng magkakapatid nung sila'y napunta sa Egypt at first time na nagkaroon sila ng magkakapatid nung sila'y napunta sa Egypt at first time na nagkaroon sila ng hindi nila alam na encounter sa kanilang kapatid na si Joseph, yung pag-iisip nila tungkol sa mga pangyayari, makikita natin, they were not just thinking. They were actually having an experience of the guilt of conscience na tinatawag natin. Sinusumbatan sila ng kanilang konsyensya. Kaya nga, nung nasa preso sila, nag-isip sila, sabi mo, bakit ganito ang nangyari sa akin? Wala naman tayong inaagrabyado. Siguro nga yung ginawa natin sa kapatid natin, no? Naniningil na. Naniningil na. So, people who do evil, they may be able to, go through many things in life, but their conscience, which is always at work in them, will always be active, especially in their moments of solitude. Kaya alam niyo yung mga tao may nagawang hindi maganda, ayaw nilang nag-iisa sila. Dapat palagi may kausap. Yan. Kung wala kang kausap, kailangan busy sila palagi. No? May iniinom, may inihit-hit. No? They are trying to run away from a very active conscience that is telling them what is happening. At yun ang pinakamahirap sa buhay. Sa bandang dulo, ikaw ay uusigin ng iyong konsyensya. Kaya lang, alam niyo po, problema. There are also people who probably do not feel conscience because of two things. They have a callous conscience. Ibang makapal na yung ano ba yun?
Kalyo.
Kalyo. Oo. Makapal na yung kalyo ng kanilang konsyensya. Kaya, wa-effect na. Wa-effect na. Or, it can be that they have a twisted conscience. A deformed conscience. So, kung deformed yung konsensya, apektado. Paano i-reflect ng conscience yung katotohanan kung deformed na yung konsensya. Kaya, napakahalaga yung tinatawag po natin na formation of conscience. So, yun yung napakahalagang bagay na we have always to look at, especially in the family, in the raising up of the younger members of the family, the issue of really putting in the proper conscience of these people. So, kung hindi, then, yun ang yun ang check valve ng tao. Yun ang spiritual check valve ng tao. Yung konsensya niya. Eh kung walang check valve, walang spiritual values. Kaya ganun siguro nangyayari sa iba. Kaya isip ko, paano kaya ganyan ang isip niya? So the conscience may not be at work. Pangalawa, whenever we speak also about moral life of people, okay, there are two kinds of fear at work in a person. Two kinds of fear. Yung isa, sa verse 18, yan, na mention ni Joseph. Sa verse 18, the fear of the Lord. The fear of the Lord. Verse 18. So, the fear of the Lord. That is one very important kind of fear that we have in life. It's a healthy fear kasi itong fear of the Lord makes us do what is good, what is pleasing. Kapag ang isang tao walang takot sa Diyos, delikado. Kasi pag ang isang tao walang takot sa Diyos, ibig sabihin, he does not find or she does not find accountability with God. Walang takot. But the other kind of fear na pwedeng mag-operate sa tao ay yung makikita natin sa verse 35. Yan. Sa verse 35 naman, ito yung natural fear that comes with knowing what is right and wrong. So, there can be two kinds of fear, both good, no? These are fear that makes us have our moral balance. Yung isa is fear of God, which is fear that is brought about by faith in God. Yung isa is fear of what is consequence of good and bad. Ito po, nanggagaling hindi sa faith, nanggagaling ito sa human value. Human value lang. Basta alam ng tao na mali yung kanyang yung nangyayari. Kasi nga, eto, may pagkain pero hindi nabayaran. Human value. No? Ito is a value of faith. So, this is also what distinguishes the baptized from the unbaptized. Ang isang taong binigyan as fear of God because of faith, this is a grace. Samantala, other people who are not baptized, ang umiira sa kanila is just the working of ordinary conscience, human value. So, this is virtue. Human virtue. Ang isang binyagan will be judged by God according to grace. Kasi binigyan siya ng grace. Samantalang isang hindi bininyagan at isang hindi nakakakilala ng lubos, halimbawa kay Jesus, yung isang Buddhist, will be judged according to virtue. So, people who are not baptized can become good because of human value, virtue. But people who are supposed to be Christians and have heard the gospel should become good because of grace. Only baptized people have grace. Kasi iba nagtatanong, hindi, kung masesave pa na lahat, pati bayad pa tayo ng papabinyag. Magkaiba po ang pagliligtas sa isang nabinyagan at isang hindi nabinyagan. Hindi pareho naman. So, ang isang bininyagan ay binibigyan ng grasya. Ito po ay deposito ng Diyos. Ang isang hindi nabinyagan, kailangan magpakabuti because of virtue. Ito ay simply human effort. So, yun ang difference ng salvation ng baptized at hindi baptized. Kasi maaaring may mga pilosopo kayong kilala sa solution. Ay, bakit pa tayo mag-a-active sa simbahan? Pareho naman tayo niligtas ng Diyos. Magkaiba ho ang uri ng kaligtasan na binibigay. Okay? Another very important lesson, human wisdom that we find in this particular story ay yung tinatawag po natin na value ng emotion at value ng family spirit. Yun ang hindi mahirap i-control ni David, ni Joseph. Kaya anong gawin ni Joseph? Lalabas at lalabas yung kanyang pagiging pamilya. So, sabi nga natin, blood is thicker than water. So, lalabas at lalabas yung kanyang pagiging pamilya. At dahil dyan, bugso ng damdamin na kadalasan ay dapat hindi ganun kalakas, Joseph experiences it. And later on, lalo-lalo na pagdating ng kanyang kapatid na si Benjamin. So, makikita niya yung kanyang tunay na kapatid. Kasi itong mga bumisita sa kanya, mga kapatid niya ito sa ama. Oo. Pero magkakaibang ina ito mga ito, di ba? Kasi si Jacob, 4 yung naging pamilya. No? 4 na pamilya yun, 4 na ina yun. So, ang magkaina lang si Joseph at si Benjamin. Kaya iba yung magiging connect ni Joseph kay Benjamin pagdating ni Benjamin. No? Pero even then, dito, you notice how, the sense of family spirit is very strong. No? And I think this is a great hope, especially for families experiencing a not so good experience. Di mo maiwasan yung kumisan sa pamilya nagkakaroon ng class, pera, pamana, ugali. Pero kung minsan, ang nagpapalala, in-laws. Kapag yung magkakapatid na nag-usap, okay, pero kung nakialam na yung kanyang asawa, patay ng bata. So, I am telling this from the experience of more than two decades of ministry. Nagiging komplikado talaga. And kung minsan you feel hopeless. Yesterday, I had to celebrate Mass for a family that have lost their father first and then their mother next. And kahapon, babang luksa ng tatay. Susunod naman next year, babang luksa naman ng tatay. Alam niyo, nung I was preparing for the Mass, and I was sitting down and I was waiting for all the guests to come. Nag-iisip ako kung paano ko ihimayin yung message ng Word of God. Kasi alam ko, itong magkakapatid nag-aaway. And nandun lahat. So, naninimbang ako paano ko gagawin yung reflection kagabi. Pero maganda sana yung reflection kasi yung responsorial sa kahapon, I will go rejoicing to the house of the Lord. Mabanglog siya. Tama. Tapos yung first reading Paul and Barnabas preaching the good news even to the uncircumcised. God is a welcoming God. paano kaya sabihin mo sa magkakapatid? Buti na lang medyo yung gospel umayon niya ng konti. Gospel is about the vine and the branches. There's a statement there which says, the branches that bear fruit, the Father prunes to make them more fruitful. So, yung pruning, hindi ganun kadali. No? Siguro, hindi mo mapipil kasi hindi ka naman kahoy. Kaya, prune ka ng prune. Pero kung ikaw yung kahoy na pinuputulan, na lumalabas yung dagdag pag pinutol, ibig sabihin may sakit yun. Masakit. Pruning is always a painful experience. Pero sabi nila, I prune to make them fruitful. Nung ko inikot yung reflection ko sa magkakapatid kahapon. Kasi tinatanong din nila ako, bakit ganun, Padre? Namatay na si Daddy, tapos sunod si Mami. Tapos, yung nangyayari yan, they were not in good terms. So, they were not in good terms. Yun. Later on, I found out somewhere, somehow, they begin to talk. They begin to connect. And it took the death of the father and the mother for them again to talk. Oh? Yan na palagi pakiusap ng matanda mo. Mag-usap na kayo. But it took the death of both parents for them again to talk. Oh? But yeah, there's always the family spirit. And it is not totally extinguished. Dito sa kwento ni Joseph, and then, after 20 years, it's still there. Okay? And then, I think the last message that we can get from the reading tonight ay yung example ni Joseph. Kung ako si Joseph, mas madaling isipin ko na whether lang. Binenta niyo ako noon. Hindi ako nakikilala ngayon kung sino ako. Whether lang. Mas madaling isipin yung gano'n, di ba? Medyo re-respect na ako. But I think this is the virtue behind Joseph. And I think this will be the life of Joseph. The reason why Joseph is very important in the story of the Bible. He's an example of one who has known how to return good for evil. And in a sense, Joseph, in the book of Genesis, is actually the foreshadowing of Jesus. Kasi Joseph was sold by his brothers. Jesus will also be sold by his own people to the Romans. But in the same way that Joseph became the source of redemption for his family during the time of the famine, Jesus will also become the source of redemption for not only his people, but for all people. So, yun ang sabi nila, yung kwento ni Joseph is actually an archetype. It's an archetype of the life of Jesus. Ito yung magiging isa sa mga kwento na bubuhayin ulit ng Panginoon Jesus. Joseph is the archetype. So, So, he is not actually the real patriarch kasi ang susunod na patriarch whom we will meet in the next chapter will be Judah. But binigyan ng special treatment si Joseph sa Book of Genesis. Joseph sa Book of Genesis kasi ito yung naging role niya sa Old Testament. Isa sa mga archetype ng magiging buhay ng Panginoong Jesus. Okay? So next time, para sa ating Bible, Genesis 43. At siguradong may bagong presidente na. Nakita-kita ngayon. It's another story kung yung presidente mo, presidente ko, ang lalabas. Pero naniniwala akong may grasya ng Diyos.